Property deposits. How much do you actually need to come up with to purchase your ideal property? Some say 20%, some say 10%, even as little as 5%, and in some cases, even $0, zero equity down. This is the Young Money Hackers podcast. You're here with Handol, and I'm Charlie. And in this episode, we're going to cover what is one of the biggest barriers to entry for people who are trying to get into their ideal property. And something that I've noticed is that there are two main schools of thought here. One are people who want to play it safe and put down a larger deposit, put down more equity, which is what the banks like. And the second are people who see the benefit in putting down as little as possible, as little money down as possible, to not only maximize their leverage, but to also get that property, the ideal property that might serve them long term much sooner. I definitely have an opinion on this. Handol, what are your thoughts on this?
I think we are told to be scared of the banks and, debt. When you owe somebody money, it's like a bad thing, right? Let's start off with this one, because I just came across this chart. And this chart shows how many years of income would take it to pay off an average house. And it says 12.2 years in Sydney, and Adelaide and Darwin's clocking in around about 6 at the moment in 2020. That is pretty crazy. It is definitely overwhelming for us young people out there to then rake up enough money to then be able to put down enough deposit to be then able to afford a house with average income, and the average house where it is, it's very difficult. To actually enter into a market, there are different loan products available, like what you said, Charlie, which is, your 20%, 10%, and 0%. The 0% is actually very hard to find. It's getting harder and harder to find these days because banks don't want to risk that. Because when you have 0% down, you basically have the risk of negative equity from day one, right? Should the property prices go down even a little bit over a period as short as a month. So, and of course, if you're going for anything less than 20% down to 10%, there's what's called LMI, which is lender's mortgage insurance. Which then is extra costs implicated onto your loan as well, which then adds on top of your, which can be capitalized into your loan within the structure of it in itself, but it then becomes, it then makes the cost of acquisition higher by such amount. So what do we do here? There's just so much going on, and people have no idea how to navigate through all of this, and that's what we're here to unpack. I think LMIs and looking at, how can we justify paying more money for a house so that we'll buy it and be able to make money out of it. Look, I don't think in the grammar, how much is LMI these days, do you know?
I think it's around 2% of the property's value, which can seem like a large amount of money up front, but I think there's a common narrative that people may or may not realize, and that is that you can add the cost like that. You can add that fee of the LMI into the mortgage. So it's not something you're going to have to come up with up front. And I think that's maybe a narrative that, people associate that slight extra mortgage with higher risk. They think, oh, more debt, we're going to have less equity in the position. I don't want to have to pay that extra fee. That extra fee is like, no one wants to spend the money to potentially get that better result, right? So, but the upside in my book, like the way I look at things, the upside is you get into it much sooner. The LMI, to me, is worth the cost.
I mean, think about it. If you're going to get, say, 5% increase in the value of your home. So it's a $500,000 house, 5% goes up in 1 year, which is not hard to achieve in this market, right? 5% goes up, then what do you have? 5% on 500 grand is $25,000.
25 grand,
and you're spending 10 grand to achieve that. You're entering into a market by paying 10 grand, and it's not even paying 10 grand. You're paying 5% of that 10 grand in the first year. I think it makes sense. Should you buy a property in the right location that you would experience such growth? Like, why wouldn't you seek out the LMI if you don't have as much deposit available to you? Not only that, you've got cash flow as well. If cash flow, after considering the repayment on the LMI portion itself, is still positive and you're putting more money in your pocket, why does it make you so sick to the stomach that you wouldn't buy the property?
Exactly. It's a funny narrative, I think, that has been ingrained through God knows where. It's just a societal thing. I wonder where that comes from, but I think it comes from a lack of education. I mean, in some people do like to take on less debt. They have this illusion that, having more equity means that they're safer and they're more secure, right? But I think it all depends exactly on, what asset you really want to get yourself into and how that will affect your lifestyle. If the asset you have, if the property that you have is affordable for you and you're not over leveraging, then this to me is a no-brainer. So that's why I'm stoked to be able to help people understand this whole game much better.
Today's topic is about how do we then earn a deposit to be able to then enter into a market, right? Something that I really wanted to highlight today was the deposit for what? Deposit for a house, deposit for a home, deposit for an investment. These are all different questions. I think a lot of us are out there, we live, our young lives with a massive dream. So when we think about a house, we're thinking about, a 4-bedroom house with a yard where, you and your wife or your kids, whatever, and all grow together. That classic Australian dream is what we're thinking about. Or apartment in the city, a penthouse, that's sort of what we're thinking in our heads. But the thing is, that's not the first step. The first step is 5, 6, 7, 8 properties before that. That's going to allow you to come up with down payment for $1 million, $1.5 million house. Because if you sit down and think about a $1.5 million house, $2 million house, that's a $400,000 deposit on 20% deposit. No, you can't get that with a regular 9-to-5. There's no 9-to-5 job that's going to enable you to save that much money after tax, right? In your time of prime, it's just never going to happen. If you can't do that right now, it's not going to happen in 10 years' time either. Because you know why? The property prices will be rising across the next 10 years faster than your wage will ever increase. Even if you might be like a surgeon, which is 0.001% of the young population, right? People listening to our podcast is making anywhere between
exactly
60 grand to about 140 grand. I reckon. Yeah,
that's the median. I reckon 60 to 80.
I reckon
within the median.
The deviations of people listening to this podcast would be anywhere between 60 grand to about 140 grand a year. And that's still pretty.
Exactly. So that would take how long to save up for a deposit, say on a $500,000 property at a full 20% equity, that's 100 grand. Based on that chart you showed me earlier, 100 grand would take, that's 100, that's what?
Depends
5+ years, right?
Depends.
More than that.
Depends how you say it, right? Because it's really difficult because if you live with your parents, and are you going to be happy with a $500,000 home? We looked at a $480,000.
Exactly.
What are you idealizing, right? We looked at a $480,000 home in Queen's Park, was it, in WA? Not a bad investment, right? Not a bad investment, but still not the most ideal place to live in. If you're a young person living in Perth, I don't think Queen's Park is at the top of the list to wanting to move in. Exactly. No. So what people want, right, is different. What you're doing has to build up to it, but it doesn't, right? And it's not like young people afford properties in Queen's Park, $500,000 homes. It's hard because without $100,000 deposit plus your stamp duty, which you have to come up with cash. So it's very difficult to come up with deposits. So we got to really unpack them. But here's what I want people to realize is that they need to realign their expectations. They need to realign their trajectory and their route to get to their dream property. So the first couple of properties, don't buy. Okay, don't go for a house where the deposit is 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand. Go for a house where the deposit is 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand. Things become a lot more manageable. And not only that, those properties may be able to make you more money. Now, put it this way. You're making 100 grand a year. If that's all you rely on, and you have no other investment that gives you extra income, 10, 15, 20 grand extra income every year, how are you going to be able to get to your deposit? It's not going to happen. With all your expenses, it's just simply not going to happen. So you need to make sure that each house you're buying is going to give rise to the next house you're going to buy. So including capital and also the cash flow it's going to give you enough within, say, about a year or two to get you, without relying on your own income, to get to a similar type of investment within a year or two. That should be the focus. And I think people are really missing the point out there. A lot of young people, because they're trying to go for that 750, 800, 900 grand homes. Lucky if they have rich parents, right? Who can cook, fork out a cool 6-year sum out for them. And, in Australia, arguably, many of our parents can do that because we live in, one of the richest countries in the world where the people above the age of 55, I think, like the highest proportion of millionaires in the world is in Australia. Like I don't know how to correctly. I think the listeners got what I was trying to say, but the highest proportion in the world.
Yeah, I mean, we are very lucky to have that figure. Like, we're very lucky to be in a country where there is so much wealth. A lot of us do, or a lot of people do have are in situations where they have parents and families that can support them. But assuming we don't, assuming that the average person doesn't have that luxury, I think the problem is they're trying to actualize this Australian dream too quickly, trying to actualize that dream that they have of the ideal property from day one. When I think that, and you might agree with me here, Handel, it's like,
hold up, young money hackers, we got some exciting news to share with you, because it's all well and good to hear what's going on, but we'd hate to see our young money hackers only listen and take no action. So we've been working on some game-changing tools that we wish we had before buying our first investment property.
Exactly right, man. And it all starts with numbers. Property investing can feel like an extremely overwhelming process because it's the biggest financial decision that most people will ever make. So we have developed a property investing calculator that will make this whole process effortlessly. And seriously, man, I'm actually so blown away at how easy they are to use. All you need to do is put in your numbers and the info will tell you if that property is worth it or not. I'm actually so proud of them. Genuinely can't wait for our young money hackers to get their hands on this experience. But that's not all that's new here. We also have a mentorship experience.
And that's right, we want to share with you all the juicy details to see you through to that end goal where you're profitable on your property investments.
We also come across so many investment opportunities given the property space we play in, so it'd be rude not to share those with our young money hackers. So if you'd like to get your hands on some of the deals we are talking about on the podcast, we are offering acquisition services where we and our team will hunt down properties for you to push the button and get started to add to your property portfolio.
And what a dream it is, Charlie. And there's more. We're going to hook you up with top-notch property finance and insurance so we can all sleep at night.
But HD, what if I don't have the money to invest in any of these services right away? Is there anything for free?
Well, actually, we can help you with your finance and insurances for free. Plus, there are a ton of free resources we have for you, like some of the investment calculators, books, and tutorials available on our website.
Well, you heard him, everyone. So head over to our website, youngmoneyhackers.com, or simply click the link in the description. Check out our investment calculators, learn more about our mentorship program, and explore our acquisition services. At the very least, don't miss out on the free resources we've put together to help you guys get started. Now back to the podcast. If you play the game a bit smarter, you go in and you not do it tough, but you make riskier you make decisions that are more based on wealth in your youth. That's going to give you a high probability of achieving that dream that you have in your mind, 10, 20, 30 years down the track. And by that stage, you'll be way, way ahead of where you would have otherwise been if you stuck to try and, to actualize that dream from day one, like a lot of us are trying. A lot of people are trying to do.
Let's say you bought a house where it's passive income in you, 8 grand, 10 grand a year, right, on cash flow, not on capital, but on cash flow. That's extra 10 grand that you're adding onto your balance sheet, right? Let's say after a year or two, that property has gone up 20 grand. And then let's say you refinance that, right? And then you did a cash out. With the 20 grand that's extra income,
exactly,
you're obviously living with your job and you're saving some as well. On top of that, then you can buy your second house. Yeah. So you got the second house, and then 2 of these houses are making 10 grand a year. Now it's making 20 grand a year.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, like that equity gives you so many options as the property will grow in value over time. Just simply refinancing will give you those options.
Then gives you a deposit faster. Now, what does the government sell to us on the contrary? Negative gearing, right? Just stupid.
Exactly.
In my head, that is just so stupid.
I think so too. I think that should never be the goal. I think that that can be a necessary side effect of making a smart decision early on. So like if you're trying to get a property, yeah, initially it might be negatively geared, but if you buy wisely, that should never be the goal. It should be to like maximize the growth in the immediate future, right? 2, 3, 5 years, realize that growth and then refinance and eliminate the negative gearing situation as soon as possible.
By positively gearing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And see, building that up, I'd reckon within about 6 properties, 5 to 6 properties, I reckon people will easily, like young people can easily consider commercial as well. Because commercials have enjoyed the same amount of capital growth, okay, if not better sometimes, and enjoy way higher cash flows, which we want obviously later down track in this podcast. But I think the best way to earn a deposit is with other properties. That's the conclusion that I want to make, is that if you're first realign the definition of a deposit and then realign the definition of a house, right? What it does for you. And then after that, then consider. Yeah. Of course, once you do have access to a house, you got to obviously think about different strategies also to make it highest and the best use so as to increase your cash flow, so as to increase your capital valuation as well, so that you can get to these steps faster. And there are plenty of opportunities should you pick the right property. And what I've noticed is that the first, second, like the period between the first and the second property is the longest. Second to third property is a bit shorter, provided that you buy the same value houses, right? The second to the third shorter, third to the fourth even shorter. So it's like a flow-on effect, and like a really logistical effect.
Yeah, it's like a snowball. Exactly. Yeah, because you're multiplying your results. It compounds, and this is another thing that I think true is that people love the idea of property shares over property because of the fact that you get that compound interest over time. And while that might be true, it applies to property as well. It does apply to property as well. I know that's another conversation, bit of a tangent, but it's you're multiplying not only the growth but the cash flow.
If you think about commercial properties, right, there is fixed rate increases on rents every year, and that compounds. So if you over a long term, right, over 10-year leases where there's like 3% increases every year on a compound basis, you're going to get a very significant rise in your income as well, which is quite significant. And also with residential properties, you know, there's some rates that we can apply as well on an ongoing basis too, which is pretty good. Now, I reckon other podcasts would have started this discussion with something like side hustles and like, you know, doing more work and things like that, which look, I agree with. I just thought that it was more important to talk about properties making money for us rather than make all the money yourself and then try and buy properties, because that's the fixation with the wrong understanding that the Aussies go through. But let's lean into that a little bit, because I understand you've got some side hustles, I've got some side hustles as well, and there's obviously a lot of ways that you can tap into it, even if you might have a full-time job. There's obviously ways to invest in yourself, to skill up, to make yourself more indispensable, to increase the fees you charge for your services, right? Even as an employee. So what's sort of been your experience with that kind of extra income on the side?
There are skills that people should be developing while they can. Like, I think that I think it depends how much time you have and what your interests are. So if you're someone with a lot of time and you know what you're interested in, go hard and get obsessed with that thing. Start sharing it on social media, for the love of God, and ultimately look to solve problems. There are problems that businesses need solved, like copywriting. Like you can be a freelancer, copywriter, video editor. You can learn these skills that will set you up. Sales, I think, is one of the timeless. Sales is a timeless skill that I believe everyone should learn, 100%. Because no matter what you do, you're going to be selling. Like you're selling in every situation in life, not just financially. Like you're selling yourself, your identity, like who you are. So that's a skill that I believe everyone should learn. Solve problems for other people in fair exchange. That's like one sentence that I always fall back on.
I think you leaned on something pretty important there. I think that's passionate. What are you most passionate? I think people struggle to find what their passion is. And a lot of people ask me,
big time,
how do I find my passion? Right? And the way I respond to that is go through your internet history, right? Go through your Facebook history, go through your YouTube algorithm, look at what it throws at you. You know, you might be watching a whole bunch of car videos. You might be watching a whole bunch of baking videos. You might be getting delivered a whole bunch of fashion items, right? Because you love fashion. That's your passion. I'm not, I wouldn't, this is a misnomer with passion, is that somehow you're going to do something that you're passionate about and nothing's going to go wrong. You're going to enjoy it all the time. You're going to be up at 2 a.m. working on it and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Incorrect. It's going to be just as challenging. It's only that passion allows you to overcome those challenges when it comes along. So what then people need to rely on is what they're interested in. And I think they really need to look over what they are spending most of the time doing. I personally was, when I got into real estate sales. The reason why I got into that is because I looked at realestate.com.au. I spent 2 hours on that every day. Nobody told me or paid me to do it. And that's when I knew, like, I'm going to shift my career things, because that's just so much more interesting to me. Looking at houses, looking at properties and investments and looking at numbers is what then got me fired up. That isn't to say everyone should be interested in property to buy property. I think everybody should be, you know, in their own verticals. They can really, really double down on their niches, and that is what's going to bring them that extra cash flow and that indispensability so that people seek out your services. So I think people really need to go, young people especially, need to go through this exercise to be able to identify not just what they're good at, but what they're passionate about.
I 100% agree with that. Like, your life, if you look back on your life, there will be flecks of gold in there, that things that you naturally gravitate towards. Those are the things that you should be honing in on. And if you don't ignore them and become obsessed with them, right? Because you might realize that you're obsessed with something, but then not give it the credit that it deserves and just think that, oh, you know, this is nothing. Well, no, it's not nothing. If you are putting energy into something, that is massive. Not everyone is obsessed with that thing. And then so it's all about going hard into what you love and understanding that it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows. It will be challenging still. So what you said there was like massively true.
I mean, you and I, we met on TikTok, right? So we made TikTok.
Exactly.
Who would have thought, 10 years ago when we were in high school, 15 years ago when we were in high school, who would have thought that one day you'll make videos that are between 40 and 60 seconds long and you make money out of it? Like, nobody knew that. And
I know. It's crazy. I know.
Up and talk about something you are passionate about and people will start throwing money at you. Like, it's just, who would have thought that was the case, right?
It is crazy. And it's one of those massive things where it's like, if you do what not many other people do, you're going to get results that not many other people get. And that is one of the things that I've found is, like, even just showing up on TikTok, such a random app, but like you can change lives through that thing. You can reach millions of people and literally have a good impact on them. And as long as you have a way to serve them, that's how you derive an income from that. And anyone can do it, I might add.
Absolutely. And I think it's just a matter of picking up the phone and find a way to monetize everything that you're doing, scale up, go for a look for side hustles. Guys, if you are interested to find out more, make sure you come follow us. Send us a DM. We are incredibly helpful when it comes to buying property. If you're in the market for one, let us know. Let us help you make some money. And reach out. Make sure you go like, share, subscribe. And we will see you next time.